Hello, I am Michael Bean, and this is the lesson for myfreeactingclass.com at Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. What are we, like 4 months into quarantine now? I had a student who was said that he was just making check marks on his wall, like somebody who's in prison, and he's like 97 days and counting. And I was like, that was a couple of weeks ago. So something very sobering about hearing like the total number of days. Today we are looking at a short script from a show called Battle in Seattle. I think that let's see, how many people were here on Friday? Yeah, some. Okay, 1, 2, 3, a few of them. Just if it's worth me showing you Emma's video again, I have a fantastic video from a local director, saying, thanks so much, Nikki. Probably the same thing that was happening yesterday. I can be closer to my microphone, and that's about all I can do. Can you hear me okay now, Nikki? Okay, that's as high as my volume can go, I'm afraid. So, but I can speak up. I don't have to be all like gentle with you today and be like, now, acting, here we go. One thing that I said that I would share with you is story questions template. So we're going to be looking at this today. So right there. If you want to download the PDF, then you can download it with that link. I'll put that in the YouTube as well. So let's take a look at the script from Battle in Seattle. I need Quinn, we're going to make you the guard if you feel okay about that. So you'll be, I think their name is Smith. And then we've got young girl and who wants to be young girl. If you got your video on, then I'm assuming that you're available to be asked to help. Don't everybody jump at once. Hey Wes, you want to help me out? It's one line. It's super straightforward. Part of this is going through a script like this, to figure out what can we bring to a single line or a couple of lines. So I'm gonna unmute you there and unmute you there, and we'll take a look at the script. So, interior women's holding cell night. So women's holding cell means they're in jail. A group of women, including Jean, chant, "We want our lawyers now. They're just outside the door. We want our lawyers now, or we will chant some more." Smith enters looking angry. All the women stop chanting at once. A young girl around 17 is turned away from Smith. She keeps singing, "We want our lawyers now." Smith singles her out.
What's your name?
The girl looks uncomfortably towards the other women.
I asked you what your name is.
It's Jane WTO.
You think that's funny, do you?
No.
And then, let's keep reading the crossed out part. Why don't you read this part, Quinn?
Okay. So far, we've been good to you, giving you privileges so you don't have to share a cell with real criminals. But if you don't tell me your name right now, you're going to spend the next few days with convicted murderers. Understand?
Deborah, do you want to jump in? You just have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay. Leave her alone. She doesn't have to tell you anything.
Smith turns to Jean and sizes her up.
Jackson, go tell all the prisoners that every privilege, including lunch, has been taken away today because of 2 women we're bringing down.
Deborah?
Oh, sorry. I will not be intimidated by you.
Right. So today we're going to look specifically at young girl. If we could look at Smith, but these were the audition sides for young girl, so I think we should stick with that. Or we can talk a little bit about Smith, at least to humanize the character. So this is a really interesting one because if you did the very first thing that I suggest, and let me pull up I've got it already. Okay, so if we pull up the story questions, right? We've got style, the writer's story, my story, the arc, the descriptive words, et cetera. The first thing that I usually recommend doing is going onto a browser and looking up the project. Now, if you had the breakdown, if you were sent the breakdown by your agent, that would include the director's name, typically also the producer's name, and all of that. So if we go in here, Battle in Seattle, we see the director and the writer are Stuart Townsend. Now, if we look up Stuart Townsend, then we see that he hasn't directed anything, right? So if you were to look him up on IMDb, and this was before, it would maybe say Battle in Seattle in production, or Battle in Seattle announced, but these are his only directing and writing credits. So normally we would look up the director and we would see if we could learn anything about them, but in this case we can't. And so we've got to be a little bit more creative than that. Now, it would be a little bit easier if you had the breakdown, because you could go and look up the producers and directors. So I didn't think to do that first, but let me sign into my own account here. Producers, here we go. And so if we went on to IMDb Pro, we would have the directors and producers. You would have these in an actual breakdown. So we could look up Mary Allo and Kirk Shaw, used to run Insight Films. Okay, so we see what she produced, right? Projects and development. See what she produced before 2007. And also Room 401, right? So not a whole lot. Anyway, we could go looking for that, or we could say, okay, this is a movie about a real thing. And so maybe it's enough to just look up the actual real thing. The 1999 Seattle, and so when I go Wikipedia, what was the Battle in Seattle? Battle in Seattle, Wikipedia, right? I get 1999 Seattle WTO protests. Some Seattle WTO protests, sometimes referred to as the Battle of Seattle, were protests surrounding the World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference of 1999. The negotiations were quickly overshadowed by massive and controversial street protests outside the hotels in the Washington State Convention and Trade Center. Large scale of demonstrations, we've got law enforcement agents spraying pepper spray at the crowd, which has become a unfortunately familiar sight for anybody who's connected to social media at the moment. And then we can go and we can very easily find footage of the protests.
The whole world is watching. 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 The whole world is watching.
5 days, 60,000 people, tear gas, rubber bullets, broken windows.
Right, and if it was important to you, you could watch all 15 minutes of that and really learn about it. For the purposes of what we're doing, or for the purposes of a 2-line audition, maybe it's enough to just go, okay, I looked at some footage, I see what it was. It was like a huge protest against a trade organization, happened in Seattle. The protest turned confrontational. There were police there. A whole bunch of people were arrested. And that takes us back to the script that we just read. Right. So if you are preparing the character of young girl, you have 2 lines. Your first line is "It's Jane WTO," and the second line is "No." Right. So it's and then you have ellipses, Jane WTO, and he says, "You think that's funny?" And the second line is "No." Right. So super straightforward for anybody who's trying it out for us today. If we look at our, and this is where I need you to jump into the chat window. So if we go to our story breakdown, we've got what? What's the style? What would you say? What's the style of this show? It's a feature film. Drama, based on real events. Okay, great. Write a story. At least for this scene, what we've got, protesters jailed by police. And we can assume unfairly based on the way they're reacting. We want our lawyers now. My story, what's the part of, if you're going out for a young girl, what's the part of the story? Hopeless, right? If she's hopeless, does it make sense that she's chanting for lawyers and then standing up to the police officers? Maybe, it makes where she's protesting. Passionate protester. Right in jail for the first time. Maybe that's my story. Okay, what's the arc of this very short scene? And this is something that I just started talking about last week. It starts somewhere and it goes somewhere else. And even in a very small scene like this, you've still got arc. It's what you've got in the script is it starts with her still chanting, "We want our lawyers now." And then the officer, Smith, starts really cracking down on her. So what would you say that arc is? Or is it enough to just write that in? Okay, chanting with friends or fellow protesters fighting, and she was silent, right? So and then right, so the arc is from that to intimidated, right? Maybe Jean's not intimidated; she comes forward. And so descriptive words. If you are playing this character and you're the kind of person who not only is willing to go to a protest, but is willing to be arrested, for by police for what you believe in, how does the young girl describe herself? If she wants justice, how does she describe herself as a person? Right, she's a fighter. Exactly. I'm a fighter. I'm strong, confident, strong-willed, hopeful. Great. And then how am I going to describe Smith? Right. If I'm the young girl, maybe I may or may not have experience with police officers, but certainly I've never been in jail before. Mean. Big. What else? Authoritative. Yeah. Arrogant, yeah, he thinks that he can, boss everybody around. But in here in the cell, everybody's been talking about how they don't have the right to do this, etc., etc. Script relationship: prisoner and jailer. What's the emotional relationship?
Arrogant.
Deborah, I think that's you. Could you please mute your?
All right.
What's the emotional relationship here? And maybe this is where you get really personal, but it's like, I feel that way about I was going to say my grandfather, but if it's me, Michael Bean, probably I'm using my uncle, right, who is very convinced that he is the right all the time. And so what we're looking for is a personalization. So not just a general feeling word, but a specific way to make this personal to you. Because you don't have to, and so the real question, Christina, is not, okay, if you feel like, they're not connecting, it's, who do you feel that way about? And you don't have to tell me in the chat window, but this personalization, is often something, like from your own life, or your own imagination, something that helps you find that emotional relationship clearly, right? So, and that's, if you don't have the experience of being jailed, maybe you have the experience of going to the principal's office if you're a young person. Or maybe you have the experience of being pulled over by a very aggressive police officer, while driving your car if you're an adult. Somebody's who's violated my values, exactly. And so you would pick somebody specific, and God don't tell me here, but you fill up those moments with something really charged, so that when he first comes in, Candy looks over at him, and just the look on her face tells us volumes, and she never has to tell us what exactly happened there, or what she's using or imagining. But the more specific she is about imagining. Now, let's say that she's like, I can't think of somebody who's violated my values in a really specific way, but I can imagine a very specific violation, and that's what is making this alive. the point and the sort of baseline here for all of these is there's no right and wrong. There's just more and less effective. And so, and then what do I want if I'm the girl, right? If I'm playing the young girl. Justice. And specifically, what do I want here in this interaction with to get out of jail? Right, get out of jail. Right. I'm good. I want to, or, I want him to help. Or I don't want to be treated like this. Right. And so that takes us into the objective phrases. Where it's like, I don't want to be, and we might even put it in stronger emotional language, right? So I don't deserve to be treated like this, or and we could put it into even stronger language, right? If you are somebody who has right, and so that I don't want to be undermined. Great, Nikki. And then if we follow that into an objective phrase, how do we put that into short, charged emotional language that you would say to another person? Olivia, I'm trying to be honest thing is a I think that what you're getting at is that she's very sincere, she cares, but her line is actually a lie. she is not telling him her name. Jane WTO is what's called an alias. It means that she's not giving her name, she's actually lying to him. So, just a slight misinterpretation of the script there. Or, this isn't right. Yeah, or you're not the boss of me, or leave me alone, or don't hurt me, right? Right, it's very totally different. So you could do the scene as I'm gonna stand up to you, I don't deserve this. You could also do the scene as please don't hurt me, big guy with the club. I have rights. Or I'm not telling you anything. Is how I'm interpreting Nikki's suggestion there. I'm not telling you anything. We want to put it into short, charged language, which is why you're not the boss of me. Is if that when Christina says it out loud really fires her up, she's like, yeah, then that's effective. It doesn't have to be stronger language than that. So let's take these objective phrases and go into this. And so those are the objective phrases, and then the lines for the scene. I might be able to just cut and paste all of them. No, I don't think so. So the chant is, we want our lawyers now. Just outside the door. Want our lawyers now, or we will chant some more. I'll go back and show you the script again, just so that we can take a look at that. Right, so we've got the whole chant written up here. And I would say that if you're preparing this audition, because that's what's written into the top of the scene, and it even says she keeps singing, or chanting, we want our lawyers now. And she just doesn't notice at first that everybody else has stopped. But you could get this whole chant in here and just say to the reader, if you're taping it, you'd have all the options. But in a real audition, or in an in-person audition, I should say, because taped auditions are going to be real auditions for a very long time, you could just say, I'm going to chant, when I stop chanting, then give me that first line. Right, so then the reader takes their cue from you, and you controlling the top of the scene. He asks what the name is. And so that's the cue line, and then we've got it's Jane WTO Smith. And then no. Great. Now this ellipsis, 3 dots, we haven't talked about this yet, or maybe we have, but just in passing, it's good to revisit that anytime you see an ellipsis in a script, it typically means that you either trail off, or that you are cut off. Now in this case, it's in the middle of your sentence, so it's really easy, you control it. But let's say you've got 3 dots, or one of those very long dashes at the end of a sentence. Typically those mean that you either trail off, which means that you just kind of stop talking, or that you know what the end of the sentence is and the other character is supposed to cut you off. If you ever get that thing where the other character is supposed to cut you off, write the next 2 words. Like finish the sentence with those 2 words, because the reader will always be late. And then you will sound bad, but it will be their fault, but nobody will know that when they watch the tape. Because if they're supposed to cut you off and you just, this is where you cut me off, Quinn. That's just gonna make you look bad when they watch the tape later. And even if it's the reader's fault, nobody watching the tape has any way of knowing that. So if the line on the script is, this is where you cut, and then there's a long dash, then you, the actor, you're like, oh, this is where you cut me off. And you're just gonna say, this is where you cut me off. And then it doesn't matter if Quinn misses his cue completely, because he's just reading the script. We can't expect him to, overlap. And in fact, he may be being careful not to overlap my dialogue, because the people who are receiving the tape don't want his voice over top of mine. So it's just something that I see from actors a lot, is that when there's an ellipsis, they'll just, and so you have to trail off, which is, or you have to finish the sentence, as though they were going to cut you off. So with this scene, if you've got your video on, then I'm assuming that I can, pick on you to help me, and so. Elaine, you want to do the young girl? Okay, great. You can state it in the chair if you want. Remember yesterday we talked about those 2 different eye lines, because I know it says that
Yes.
she has her back to the guard, but we're going to cheat the eye lines closer to the camera. So pick your eye line for the guard. Should be just one side of the camera. That exactly, and then turn your body to face the other side of the camera. Right, so you're looking over it, and that's where everybody else is. So look at your other eye line there, and that's where everybody else is. Right, you're going to start there, and if you don't want to worry about remembering the line, then just chant, "We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now." And just and you get like 1 or 1.5 of those out, and then you're like, everybody else has stopped. Oh God, and look over and clock the guard. Now in terms of these objective phrases, which one of these is interesting to you? I don't deserve to be treated like this. Right? You're not the boss of me. Leave me alone. Don't hurt me.
I have rights.
I have rights. Yeah,
Yes.
good. So look at the guard right now. And say, I have rights.
I have rights.
Good. Yeah, and if that's like a 2 or 3, take a deep breath and give me a 4 or 5.
I have rights.
Good, and you did a totally normal thing there, which is you breathed, took a breath, and then you breathed out, and then you spoke. But because breath carries feeling, if you take a deep breath and use that breath to speak, we'll get more feeling. So give me that 4 or the 5. Take a deep breath, use the breath to speak, give me a 4 or 5.
I have rights.
Okay, great. And then we just make him intimidating enough that it's challenging, to get that out there. You're going to start by chanting. This will look over at the other side. And to give the scene as much arc as possible, we're going to start with like you and your people. Like, yeah, you were arrested for your beliefs, and like here you are with all the other people who believe what you believe, so you feel good, right? You're in jail, but you've got community. Exactly. Right? So that we don't start on the same feeling note that we're going to end the scene on. We give it arc, even in something this short. Right? That we want our lawyers now is like, yeah, stand up, stand by, and action.
We want our lawyers back.
now.
We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now.
You, what's your name? I asked you what your name is.
It's Jane WTO.
You think that's funny?
No.
Cut. Great. Yeah, you saw how she remembered to throw a look over to the ladies, her backup to see what she should do, which is written in the script. Yeah, and I think that it's important to have those two different relationships. One of the reasons that thanks so much for that demo, Elaine, that was really, really clear. One of the reasons that it's so effective to have those two different eye lines is that your eyes go from this side of the screen to that side of the screen. And so even if it's not a very big movement, even if I'm just doing up top and it's really just like 10 centimeters, because my eyes go from that side of the screen to that side of the screen, it's clear there's two different things that I can have two different relationships with. Wes, you want to be my young girl? Okay. And so pick one of these objective phrases. What works for you?
I don't deserve to be treated like this.
Okay, great. Try saying that out loud, see if it fires you up.
I don't deserve to be treated like this.
Let's make it even shorter. See if you get more charge by just saying I don't deserve this.
I don't deserve this.
Okay, great. If that's like a 3 or 4, take a deep breath. Give me a 5 or 6.
I don't deserve this.
Right, and then start when you're with the people on the other side. Stand by and action.
We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now. Was that we want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now.
I was chanting with you and then stopping. So I was trying to just help you tell the story. That was funny though, because that reaction was so perfect. You just hadn't broken character. You can see that her real reaction, whoa, wait, what's actually happening? So great. Now, there's a perfect example of often when the actor feels like something is wrong, if they just stay in character, it's much more interesting than whatever you've got planned anyway, right? Uncertainty and surprises that's what's happening to most of our characters most of the time. So it probably won't surprise you this time, but just to point it out to everybody else. Thanks for letting me use you as a demo, Wes. Let's do it again. Take it from the top, from the chanting. Stand by and action.
We want our lawyers now.
We
want ours now. We want our lawyers now. We want our lawyers now.
What's your name? I asked you what your name is.
It's Jane WTO.
You think that's funny? Do you?
No.
Cut. Great. And then somebody wants to do this complete opposite, right? So no, Caden, I love your enthusiasm, but not this one, man. Somebody wants to give me the don't hurt me, or the right, some version of the you're being really freaked out, by the guard. You want to do that, Nikki? Great. Yeah, jump in.
Sure.
Right. I think
Okay.
Nikki's probably a little young to actually be arrested, but we can use imaginations. Maybe not. I don't know.
So the don't hurt me?
Yeah. Well, just try that. Say "don't hurt me" and see if it fires you up. So find the eye line for the guard.
Okay.
So find the eye line for the guard. Good. And then find the eye line for your people. That's good. Good. And so back to the guard. Good. Stay with the guard and just try saying "don't hurt me."
Don't hurt me.
Good. Take your volume down, sit down and say, "Please don't hurt me." See if you feel more. No, don't turn your computer down. I mean, talk.
Yeah.
Say, "Please don't hurt me."
Please don't hurt me.
Great. So there's more feeling, coming out of you. Take a deep breath. Use the breath to speak. If that was a 2, give me a 4 or 5.
Please don't hurt me.
Good. And do you see how she did exactly the same thing that Elaine did, which is that she breathed out and then she talked, right? Because when we hold our breath, we feel less. And that's what we do most of the time. We were talking about voice work a little bit in the questions. So stay in it. Take a deep breath. Use the breath to speak. Give me that 4 or 5.
Please don't hurt me.
And you hear she did it again, right? So she's completely unconscious of the breathing, which is totally normal. But it's one of the reasons that acting so much acting involves voice work. Great. So just stay with that big 4 or 5. I don't mean to make you self-conscious about it. Thank you so much for being a demo for me. And we want to start as far away from it as possible. So now turn to your people and turn your shoulders to face them, and what we want is ease, relax. Exactly, because this is you and your people chanting, and it's really fun. And you can cut off once you notice people have stopped chanting, you can stop a lot quicker. Because we haven't heard that either. And I think that will also up the threat level. Stand by And action.
We want our
lawyers now.
We want our lawyers now. We
See the guard? See the guard? See the guard? He's on the other side. And just pull back, pull your body back. You, what's your name? I asked you what your name is.
It's Jane WTO.
I think that's funny. Do you?
No,
Cut. Great. Right. So if we were going to keep workshopping it, we throw in the look to the lady on the other side of the camera. But the you can see you've got options in this kind of thing. When you're doing something historical, you've got YouTube on your side. You can go through the questions. Let's see if we can find, maybe we'll do like a sort of quick actor challenge for the next one of these, and then see if we can, I'll find us a scene that's a little bit more sophisticated without having too much dialogue. But I think sometimes doing these short ones is really useful, because especially there's that thing of like the producer's only going to watch the first 20 seconds. Well, what if your thing's only 20 seconds? Well, then if you only do the dialogue, then maybe your audition is 10 seconds. If you bring in the life of it sort of before and after, and you decide what happens, then maybe you're filling it out. You're giving us more life to the character. Thanks for your demo, Nick. Appreciate it.
yeah, no problem.
It's 4:04. Let's say bye to any of the folks who have to leave, and then I'm available for questions for the next 10 minutes. So bye, people who need to leave.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Come back on Monday, Caden. I'll have something fun for you.
Okay. If I miss it, it's probably because I have something fun and important or something.
Totally. Yeah, you should do whatever's the most fun and important. Definitely.
Or just to get a day off, probably.
I get you. I take those.
Like go camping or something.
I did some of that just last weekend. So anybody who's still around, the questions.
Bye.
Hi, Caden. What would you like to know? Or what would you like me to talk about? Wes, we haven't seen you for a while. Is there anything on your acting mind that you'd like me to talk about here?
That was pretty interesting about the breathing and speaking.
Oh, it's the most normal thing in the world. What I've heard from both voice coaches, and I worked with an Alexander technique teacher, for a while, just somebody who's like really wise, is that the way, and then this is backed up, then by the like little bit of biology, reading that I've done, is that the way we suppress feeling in our lives is primarily by tensing muscles, and so a lot of those little micro muscles are around our breathing apparatus. And so it's very normal for somebody to breathe out all of their air and then try and talk from that place. And of course, there's just not going to be as much feeling and not as much power and not as much support as if you take a breath, and you keep and singers are so familiar with this, right? You'd never sing out all of your air. You actually, keep quite a bit of air in there as support. You're also likely to feel more, which is the value of voice work, which Dia asked about yesterday. Sorry, Wes, you were going to jump in with a question there, I think.
Yeah, so I have a music agent now too, so that's interesting. I'm with
Oh my God, that's so
Premiere.
great!
Yeah, I got a studio recorded song done like a month ago, so that's pretty
Wow.
interesting. So that happened, but for acting and stuff like that, I'm starting to write like scripts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And want to try getting into like directing if I can. So is there any like directing classes of that's the thing?
I don't know about any good ones, especially not for your age. Honestly, I think that your very best bet as a young aspiring director would be to find a mentor. Now,
Okay.
there are like, at least for the next couple of months, you've got a fair number of skilled people who have more time at home than they would normally have. And so, especially if there are local filmmakers, whose work you admire, especially sort of like up and coming folks, or folks who are doing indie material. But there's nothing that stops you from finding those people, on their personal websites, on Instagram, and just sending them messages saying, hey, I want to be a director, like, I'm looking for a mentor, or I'm looking for, I want to be a director, what would you advise? Because the short version is like, I've never directed. So I have opinions about those things because I've been connected to the industry for a long time. But the people who really have experience about what's going to help you move along the path of becoming a director are directors.
Okay.
Were you here when Jesse Miller came on as a guest a number of weeks ago?
I wasn't. I wish I was though. So
Okay,
I
well,
did hear about it.
but if you find you can watch the YouTube video. Yeah, once you watch the video and you sort of see who he is, let me know if you want me to connect you with him directly, and then just email me privately, and I'll forward you to him.
Okay.
Because he said something like, "I always like getting emails from people," and so Jesse is probably not reflective of everybody, but he said specifically in that interview that he loved being contacted by actors, he loved being contacted by local filmmakers. He's like, I'm not always the person to help them, but I love passing them on and being like, "Hey, person I know, connect with this person," right? That one of the things that is really hard to hold on to in your position, Wes, is that your enthusiasm actually is something wonderful to offer, especially to somebody who's like jaded and cynical, and has been like doing the hard work of trying to do this thing for a long time, going like, "Hey, I've got all of this enthusiasm, and I don't have experience, but if you've got experience and you could use some like enthusiasm and like gratitude, I totally have that for you." Right? Like
Okay.
that mentorship really seems one-sided. It's like somebody who knows a lot is teaching me for free. How does that work? But the idea is that you're like making a real personal connection with somebody who empathizes with your experience, hopefully because they've had a similar experience, because like they are a director or care about it. And it's like, yeah, I'll have coffee with you. And I would say just when in that initial ask for a very modest amount of time. Hey, do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 30 minutes? Right? If it was not quarantine, I would say offer to take them for lunch, because that's like such as like, I don't know, everybody's got to eat. In this context, because it's all online, it's probably really easy to just be like, "Hey, do you have 15 minutes? Can I talk to you about this?" And then come back to us and and share some of what you learned in the process. Like that would be great for us too. Does anybody else have questions before we hit? Yeah, Joseph, please.
I know some things are changing with Kirsten Clarkson. Is there going to be a class tomorrow?
I don't know the answer to that. I sent her a message saying, is there anything that you want to, me to tell people? And I didn't hear back from her. So I assume that there is going to be a class tomorrow, and that she will sort of like announce the changes in her schedule as like, or at least whatever she's got. If I had more information, I promise I would tell you everything. She hasn't said anything yet.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions today? Going once, going twice. Agents, headshots, acting. Okay. Today. Yeah.
Okay, this is just another question for just like an acting question. Is just what kind of camera do you use for like filming like auditions or whatever? I'm just curious.
I have at the studio, I have a Canon, which is it's like an SLR. You can get them on Craigslist fairly inexpensively. We started with the T3Is, and T3Is at this point are so old they should be very inexpensive. On Craigslist, and they totally work. At this point with a self-tape, the lighting in the background, I think, are more important than the camera, because they're going to see it this size anyway. They're like high quality cameras, are the ones that will let you like watch it on the full-size television, and nobody's watching audition tapes on a full-size television, right? It's like most people are recording them with their phones. The camera on your phone is probably really excellent as it is. And in fact, the cameras on phones are often better than the cameras that are on computers or laptops. So if you were looking at like, I want to up my self-tape game, you might be better off purchasing a microphone. And getting your like lighting and background, right? Like those are probably your sort of top three. It's like, if you don't have that like big window, or even if you've got that and you just want to like up it a little bit, then you like, okay, scour your house for desk lamps, or purchase a very simple ring light. buy a can of blue paint and paint your back wall blue, or get like a big piece of blue construction paper. I'm personally not a huge fan of curtains, just because I find the wrinkles slightly distracting. But it's still way better than like seeing lots of shelves. Like, right. So the point is just that we're looking at your face instead of looking at everything else. Does that answer your question, sort of?
I guess so, but do you have like a recommendation for like microphones, I guess?
At the studio, I use a Rode RODE video mic, because that's what that plugs into my camera the best. But when I tried to plug it into my computer, it didn't work so well. At home, I currently have an Audio Technica condenser mic that I bought on Amazon. You probably don't need anything that fancy. I bought that because
Okay.
I had somebody coming and teaching a voiceover workshop, and I wanted to make sure she had the equipment she needed. Really any kind of external microphone is going to be an improvement over the like very tiny onboard microphones, on most computers and cameras.
What about a Blue Yeti?
Pardon me?
What about the Blue Yeti?
Blue Yeti?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a company that makes them.
Oh, that's a type of microphone?
Okay. Is that what you're using where you are right now?
No, right now I'm using my laptop.
Right. Okay. There you go. So there you've got another recommendation from a company that somebody's like got something from that worked really well for them. Maybe we should ask that in the lesson next Monday and get everybody who's like had a good experience with a microphone to like throw reviews on. Okay, that is exactly 4:14 and 32 seconds. So let's wrap there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Michael.
So
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.